Hello, welcome to Jason Cabinet's Experience. I'm your host, Jason Cabinet. So we're doing a crowdfunding campaign that launches June 1st. To learn more, go to https://wefunder.com/cabinetshr. Our guest today is Moein. Moein, thanks for being here today. I really appreciate it.
Very happy to be here with you, Jason.
So first thing, you have a love for philosophy.
Yeah.
How do you get so interested in philosophy?
I mean, coming from a country like Iran, where theocracy is the basis for the government, and the big role that they try to play in our minds as a child, like to how you should think, and if you don't think that way, you're going to be punished for the rest of your life to eternity. I think that was one of the main reasons why I wanted to know more about this. Is that serious or not?
Yeah. And so how old were you when you moved here to the States from Iran?
So I did my bachelor's in Sharif University of Technology in 2018.
Okay.
And I wanted to do a Ph.D. and at the best school for doing Ph.D. in specifically power electronics, which was my main interest at that time, was Center for Power Electronics Systems in Virginia Tech. And I had the opportunity to go there, and why not? So I came to Virginia Tech as a direct PhD student in 2018.
Now, do you still have family over there?
Yes, I do.
And are you able to go back there whenever you want to, or how does that work for you?
I mean, I actually visited my family in Turkey a couple of months ago. I mean, I can go back, but like the political climate in Iran is not that well now, with a lot of protests going on after a lot of disasters, killing Mahsa Amini, which I think it's a keyword to nowadays, that government killed, and people were angry about that action, and it led to a few hundred more killings just to prove that they did not kill her. So it's crazy stuff.
I mean, most people there, right? I mean, there's so
yeah, but they have to pay the price.
Yeah, so unfortunately, that's the price you got to pay, unfortunately,
for freedom. Yeah, but yeah, Iran's renaissance is going to happen soon too.
And like, obviously, I've never been around, but I always heard it's a beautiful country, right? Like architecture, artistry, the nature, and
history.
Stuff.
Like you can see the remnants of Iran's dynasty like years ago, and I think it's amazing to see what we've had at that time. Like we have had like human rights being employed by our king 2,500 years ago, which is a big deal. So. I mean, history is good and bad. Sometimes I think maybe people have too much pride in their history that it prevents them from moving toward future. But I mean, it's definitely for tourists a very nice place to visit. And people are usually surprised how safe Iran is, because although the government is very bad, it has been usually pretty safe. And you could walk out and like in the middle of the night with no problems, which sometimes in some cities cannot happen in the US. But anyways, I hope some good things happen in Iran soon.
So Iran it's called a theocracy, right? Yeah. You think any chance in the future that's going to go away, or they pretty much have that on lockdown right now?
So yeah. So after the Iran's revolution in 1979, people I think were deceived by the people who were running that new revolution. They were saying about things like freedom, but we're going to be based upon Islam, which was the dominant religion of people at that time, and at least it is today on paper too. But they didn't say that they want to force you to believe in Islam, and if you don't, you are going to have a hard time. You can't go to school if you're not believing in the correct type of Islam. I mean, they allow you to go to school, but I mean, life gets harder if you believe in things against their beliefs. And that's a terrible thing.
So Iran is like, there's two types of Islam. I think there's one that's called Sunni and one Shia, right?
Yeah, and I think there are other schools too, but they're the major ones, yes.
Okay.
And Iran is Shia, unlike most of the other Arab countries. Okay. And it's important to note that, because I think a lot of people don't know that Iran is not an Arabic country. Mm-hmm. Iran was I don't know, some people call it invaded by Arabs after the Islam, and
so Iran is Persian, right?
Yes, they are Persian, and they had their religion was Zoroastrian. Okay. So they were forcefully somehow. I think in history you can read that it's been a relatively new thing. Like Shia in Iran was like 300 years old with the Safaviya dynasty, or more. I'm not that good with the numbers in history, but so yeah, it compared to the history of Iran, I think Islam is relatively young.
Okay. What's something about Iran that the average American doesn't know? Of course, most Americans don't know anything about Iran. So.
Yeah, most of them hardly know geographic map.
Yeah.
But I think like they're not Arabs. It's a big deal to a lot of Persians. Like it's not that it's not a racist thing, but like at least they want like you're white, you're not racist about it, but at least you want you want to know yourself as a white because you are like
like if you're Hispanic and you're from like Peru, you don't want to be say hey called a Mexican, right?
Yeah,
you want to be called Peru or at least Hispanic. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So yeah, that's it. And I think there are a lot of things. I mean, Iran has a great poetry history, and like Khayyam is one of the famous poets who a lot of Western philosophers quote from too. Like you can read it in also the journalist Christopher Hitchens' book. So yeah, poetry in Iran is a big thing.
When was the last time you've been there? The actual Iran?
I think it was 2020.
Okay, that's not long ago.
Yeah.
So when you go, do you feel like they're like watching you just since you're coming from America or anything like that, or that you just do what you want to do?
Yeah, I mean, Iran is a pretty modern company, and most of the population are well educated. Like I think the percentage is crazy high of the people who have bachelor degree or higher. So like if you walk into Iran, you don't feel like you are in a third world country. I mean, things have changed with this government because everything is going worse and worse with this government being in charge. But no, I mean, it's a definitely a privilege to come to the US and be free to think about whatever you want. You're not afraid of doing things that are against the mainstream. And I think that's what our people are craving for, with hopefully the new government that's going to come soon.
Yeah. So next, how often you get to play tennis with all the stuff you got going on?
Actually, like last week, I played tennis 3 times.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I have a lot of things to do, but tennis is the only thing that I can make exceptions for.
That's how you take care of yourself, so to speak.
Yes, exactly. And I enjoy the moment. Like I try to go to gym too, but that thing is so boring. I like gym is like in the first floor and I'm on 4th floor, and it's hard to convince myself to go to 1st floor. But for tennis, I always have plenty of time.
Yeah, and for people who haven't played tennis before, they have no idea how hard it is to play tennis, right? I mean, it's really, really good work. If you're playing against somebody like a good opponent, it's actually a really good workout.
And it engages the entire body. It's not like hands or feet. It's like you have to be good with everything. You should have a good speed. You should be good with your hands. You should have great stamina. Yeah. So yeah, it takes a lot of energy.
Yeah, of course, you get to my age, you really can't play tennis because that knee might go the wrong way.
Yeah.
So what do you do for fun besides tennis?
I love cooking. I actually wanted to become a chef when I was like in middle school. I had like 30 cookbooks, half of them English, the other half Persian. And still it's one of my great hobbies. I recently started cooking like a lot of Italian foods and also baking sourdough bread. So it helps me to relieve myself out of like the things that I like actually, which I do for most of the day, but like just to take my mind off of it for like an hour or two.
So what is Iranian food? What that consists of?
I actually have made a couple of times in our company too, but so I mean, kebabs is a big part. Like we have a kebab called kubide, which is basically ground lamb with onion, and it has a special shape that you should give it to with your fingers. And also, what else? We have a lot of stews, which people find it very.
Is the food spicy there?
No, not at all. We're not that spicy. Okay. Yeah. And we also have one thing that I found it pretty interesting to Americans, which is crispy rice.
Okay.
So the way that they cook it, it usually has a very crispy crust in the bottom of the pot, and that you can eat it with stews or kebabs, and that is a magnificent food to have. And I think that's probably most popular main course or appetizer. It can be either way, but the Americans find it.
So what's a food in America that you're like, that you really like?
So that's a question I asked because like I asked which of this is like more American. Is steak American? Some people it's mostly from Argentina.
Yeah, that's true.
But
yeah, you're right. You just really know American food.
But I think what one of my friends said that like Cajun style cuisine is it's basically American. You can truly claim that it's American. I like it.
Okay.
And yeah, I mean, I'm a big fan of steak, so I've had a great time here in the U.S.
Yes. So what's a food that most Americans love? You're like, man, this is nasty. I can't stand this.
There's nothing nasty, I think.
Okay.
But I think mac and cheese. I just don't. Maybe it's just the feeling of the guilt of so much of fat and carb at the same time. Maybe
that's the point.
Yeah,
that's the point.
Yeah, but it doesn't taste bad. But it's
okay.
It doesn't worth all the carbs and fat.
Yeah. So in your career, you've written like around 30 peer-reviewed articles.
Yeah.
What does that even mean? Like peer review, what does that even mean?
So there are different types. Like I have a website and there's a blog which I can write a post on it, and nobody will review that. There's nobody from whom I should get a permission to publish that on my website. But for a peer-reviewed article in science, it's a very important thing, because if your scientific claims are not verified by or fact-checked by credible scientists, the fellow scientists, it might lead to some misleading results. Like if you follow my paper and my paper says that you should go to left instead of right, then your whole pattern of making to the final result will be distorted by that wrong claim that I had in my paper. So by peer-reviewed, it means like I do peer review myself. Some people send me a paper and sometimes it's double-blinded, meaning that.
And this is something people do for free, right?
Yes.
Okay. It's like
completely voluntary.
Whatever. And
yeah, and it's good in the sense for the reviewer that it keeps you updated about the state of the art too. Like I do it, there's no money in it, but I can learn and probably update myself too. And yeah, it sometimes it's double-blinded, like neither author nor reviewer know each other. Sometimes it's single-blinded, meaning that the reviewer knows the author, but the author doesn't know the reviewer. So it can happen both ways.
And like you get like higher, not super, like higher authority, the scientific, better paying job. What's the actual purpose of it? What do you get out of doing all these peer review articles?
From writing them? So first of all, it's just sharing the knowledge. And it's like if I have a finding, and the good thing about science is that science is not built from scratch. Like what I start from is like what other scientists have been doing in the past years, and like started maybe from Newton, Faraday, Nikola Tesla. All these brilliant minds started some theories and worked on different parts and equipment, and I just build upon them. So I think it's my duty to, if I find anything based on their knowledge, in addition to that, I should share it with the community too. But at the same time, I think it provides publicity for the writers. That, for example, if for example the startup that I'm working at needs a high voltage scientist who needs the expertise in, for example, partial discharge, then they can see that I've been doing serious stuff in this. I've been doing experiments, and that's what I can refer to. Like, look at that paper. I've been doing that experiment. I've been doing that simulation, and we can check that out.
So what is high voltage engineering?
So high voltage. So let's say why we need high voltage at all. So we know that we need electricity, and electricity power is a product of both electric current and electric potential difference. So why we need high voltage historically, which Nikola Tesla was pushing for, and now we have it all over around the world, is the transmission line. So when you increase the level of voltage, when you're transferring power, you can reduce, like, you can think of it that way. So you have a certain level of power, and you can reach that power either by voltage or by current. So if you increase the current instead of voltage, you're going to increase the size of conductors. Like your wires need to be thicker. Higher thickness means more copper, means more expensive and more space that you need to devote. But with voltage, you can reduce the current and make things smaller. But high voltage usually leads to higher electric tension. which we call electric field intensity. And that can cause a lot of problems. Like some people might have heard like a hissing sound when they're in the proximity of transmission lines. And that's from a phenomenon called corona discharge, which is because of the high voltage. Now high voltage has a lot of applications because of the same reason. The electric aircraft that we are envisioning for future is going to use higher levels of voltage than we currently have, because we want to reduce the size, we want to increase the power density, and we'll push for higher voltage. And with our company, Avalanche Energy, we push that to crazy, like 300 kilovolts we have in a device. 300 kilovolts, to put it in like comparison mode, so our house uses 120 volt output. So 300,000 volts, I mean, I think 1,000 times or 3,000 times higher voltage. So it's very dangerous, but it enables a lot of good things too.
So I could be wrong, but didn't way back in the day, didn't like Tesla want to do electricity one way and Edison want to do electricity another way?
Edison was historically more toward DC voltage distribution.
That's what it is, yeah.
But Tesla AC.
Okay.
And I think at that time, definitely AC was an option. The game is tilting a little bit nowadays toward DC, because all the renewables are going to output power in DC form. And your phone or whatever you charge with are DC. You store batteries, energy in battery with DC. So some people have started to think like, maybe we need to switch back to DC now that we have power electronics that allows DC voltage transmission too. That was not possible 100 years ago, but now it is.
So next, talk about this. You received something called the Paul E. Torgersen Graduate Student Research Excellence Award.
Yeah. So I think every university has one. As a graduate student, like with your research, and you can claim that in a meeting with other professors and students, then they encourage you to apply for such awards. And it's like that a bunch of students are presenting their work to a committee, and that committee usually takes votes, and they pick somebody like me or some other guy.
So what got you interested in this field of work, but to do this as a career?
So high voltage engineering is stagnating in the early 2000s. Like some people were thinking like it's almost done. Like there's nothing new we can say about this, or maybe like we can't claim new things easily. So some scientists call it the dirty science because it's very stochastic and it's very hard to do experiments. So what made me interested, I saw that trend that we're electrifying everything, and in a lot of applications we need to increase the level of voltage to get to compact sizes. And when we do that, we have a lot of problems. And when I come in with a happy face, I can help you with that. So I needed to develop that expertise. And I think I was privileged with that choice when I was graduating, because there were a lot of interest in what I was doing. Like Virgin, I mean, maybe I shouldn't say names, but like Hyperloop systems need high voltage systems. Electric vehicles, I was interviewed by 2 electric vehicle manufacturing company because they also have, I mean, high voltage is a relative term. You can say 1 kilovolt is high voltage, or even 500 volts, and you can say like a megavolt. But so in all the systems, we have some relative sense of high voltage. So all these things need high voltage. And I think it was a good investment for me to go into that field, because now there are a lot of applications I can help with.
So how high does the voltage have to be for it to kill someone or seriously harm them?
So there are multiple ways if you want to kill people in electrical engineering. One is with current, like a certain threshold of, I think, a few milliamps will easily kill somebody. But so the way to think about it is like it differs from person to person a little bit, because each person has its own resistance to voltage. So it might be for someone like 700 volts. Okay. For someone might be a little bit higher, but
if you show someone, oh no, so-and-so got hit by lightning like 4 or 5 times, he's still alive.
Yeah, I think with power outlets, I don't encourage that. People should do it at home, but it's very unlikely to kill you with power outlets. But higher than that, like a few times more, like 400, 500, probably starts to be deadly serious.
So I'm probably saying this word wrong, Well, what is dielectrics?
Dielectric. So, sometimes we have two materials that they can conduct power through each other. For example, we want electrons to flow through the cables and transfer power to us that you can charge your battery with. But sometimes we don't want that happening. Sometimes we want to have a conductor here and another one here and no electrons flowing in between. In that case, we need to have some sort of insulating medium. Air itself is an insulating medium, or a dielectric, in the sense that if you have, for example, a kilovolt over a meter, it's very unlikely that you're going to have a discharge flowing in between, like a stream of electrons flowing in between. But if you become too close in air, like 3 kilovolt over a millimeter, you're going to break air. So this number varies material by material. And we have gaseous dielectric, we have liquid dielectric, like oil is a dielectric that people use in transformers. We have solid dielectrics like cable. You see the shielding around it, the solid, usually white, or it can be in different colors, but you have something around the cable that shields it from the outer system. So that is also a dielectric, but a solid dielectric. So all these materials have different withstanding levels in terms of voltage that they can tolerate. And we want to make the most out of them for specific applications. So there are a lot of games that you can play, like using this one or that one, how their interface would work. What if all those things?
So the actual science of high voltage electricity, has it been the same since the beginning? Has it science improved any, or
definitely improved? But like what I mentioned about some people mentioning that high voltage engineering is done, is that like some people were claiming that we developed quite fast enough in the beginning that we don't need to invest that much time in it. And for example, US transmission system is pretty old. And I think part of that Biden administration passed is going to help rebuild that transmission system and expand it. So that system, for example, is very old. And in one of my research, I questioned that assumption that conductors that you can see in towers of transmission systems, they're symmetric. Like if you have 3 conductors, they're like in an equilateral system that you can easily see the symmetry. But I was questioning that. Like, let's say it's not symmetric. Can we gain any benefit out of that? And the answer was a firm yes, we can. So sometimes the systems are good enough that people won't question its like improvement or its potential improvement. But there's definitely been some interesting innovations. And at Avalanche Energy, we have to do some of those because what we're doing is like nobody has ever done.
So next, change particle simulation. Does that stuff to do with physics, or that's still high voltage stuff?
So that was part of my duty in Avalanche Energy. So, I mean, charged particle is everywhere in engineering, but sometimes we don't treat it as like particles. Sometimes we treat them as like a flow of a stream of electrons, let's say. But charged particle simulation is very important for fusion engineering and fusion plasma science as well. That like with fusion, your goal is to have 2 charged particles, like 2 nuclei that are light, collide with each other and create a massive amount of energy from the difference between the mass of the resultant nucleus versus the summation of the 2 lighter nuclei. So what I was doing with that was like multiphysics simulation of that. Like, let's say we have the electric field caused by high voltage, we have magnetic field, and let's say we shoot an ion beam, and what would be the trajectory of that? So that was part of my duty in early days on Avalanche, because we were a very small company when I joined them. I was employee number 7. And so people usually in early stage startups should do different things. They shouldn't be like focused, oh, I'm high voltage scientist, so I will only do that.
Yeah, I mean, that's, yeah, the most startups don't have like a guy like you as employee number 7.
Yeah, exactly. So I was doing a lot of things that I hadn't experience with, but it helped me a lot to learn more things.
Yeah. So professionally, you're the, where's it at? So you also serve as a North American representative for the IEEE Dielectric Young Professionals, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I had Mike Boys on there like about a month ago.
He's a great friend of mine.
Yeah. So what is IEEE?
So IEEE is, I think it stands for International electrical and electronics engineers. So IEEE, like, it's, I think, I've heard that it's like the largest academic organization in the world. And like, it gathers all the electrical engineers in different areas. Like high voltage is usually part of a Dielectric and Electrical Installation Society, DEIS. And that's just a small committee of that. You can have communication systems, you have biomedical systems, you have control systems, you have electronics, you have all different things, and machine learning. So IEEE is a credible association for like connecting all those people together and providing a medium so you can share your knowledge. You can present those in conferences sponsored by IEEE. So it's like a home to all the electrical engineers of every background.
Are you going to the networking event next Friday, the dinner on June 2nd?
I don't know about that, but so it's not rare to miss a couple of one.
And then you also take part in something called American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics.
Yeah, so that was because of the project I was doing as part of my PhD dissertation. That was like, you know, one of the major challenges with electrification of aircrafts is that at higher altitudes, you know, the pressure is lower. So the partial discharge, or silent killer, and I'm going to describe that in a moment, gets exacerbated at higher altitudes because of lower pressure. So if you design a system, for example, that laptop for atmospheric pressure, it's not going to work that well high in altitude in terms of high voltage systems. Like this laptop is not high voltage. But so that problem was a big thing, because if you want to electrify aircraft and in the middle of air something bad happens, it wouldn't end in good things, because it should be a highly reliable system. And so because of that, I had some presentations in 2 conferences that were co-sponsored by AIAA. And yeah, it was basically talking about how the short-term behavior of dielectrics that we can see with our measurement system can help us to understand its future performance. And that was enabled, like, I provide a connection between high voltage engineering and machine learning, because machine learning allows you, with, for example, deep learning, to detect patterns and predict what will happen next. Or like, if you can find a signature of a bad event, you can apply it to next measurements too. So I use that to predict the lifetime of electric aircraft dielectrics and detect what type of fault is happening, because how you look at signal and you can use the deep learning model and say, like, this is the type of problem you're facing.
So talk about space real fast. So the James Webb telescopes out there, I think every day they found 1,000 more galaxies, 1,000 more potential planets. Do you think we're eventually going to find a chance of life out there?
I mean, that's a big question. I mean, it's going to be fun if you find it, but
do we want to find it? You know?
I mean, I'm always up for knowledge. Like, I don't think we should be frightened of finding out truth. Mm-hmm. So in that sense, I'm always up for it.
Yes. So recently, I don't know how recent, but you're a guest editor of a recent Advanced Electrical System Discharges. Are you still doing that?
Yeah. So there, as I mentioned, that stagnating field is being expanding more and more, and now we need it in other areas. So I was invited by NDPI, which is an academic publisher based in Switzerland, to do a special issue on that. And I would definitely welcome anybody who has an idea and want to publish there.
So next, let's talk about your startup.
Mm-hmm.
So y'all doing some really cool ass shit, right?
Yes.
I mean, I could be making up. I think on your website it says we're making science fiction come true or something like that.
Yes, that's exactly what it is. That's exactly what it feels like every day.
I mean, just like the stuff your company might potentially do is going to be like world changing, right?
Yes, and it's not only us. There are a dozen other companies that are doing fusion, and fusion has been a dream. And there's a sarcastic comment about fusion that it's always 30 years away, and the 30 years never comes to an end. But in the past couple of years, I'm sure you've seen that there's been a huge amount of investment happening in fusion energy. Like I think only in the second half of 21 until the second half of 2022, we had about, I think, $2 or $3 billion invested in fusion, which is a crazy number. And I think the private sector is going to help a lot with accelerating fusion. And what distinguishes us from other fusion companies is that, historically, fusion is targeting power plant size systems. Like they want to replace a fossil fuel-based power plant with a fusion power plant. But our configuration is very compact. We don't want to replace power plants. Let other fusion companies do that. But we want to have a fusion reactor this small that you can employ.
So you're talking about making everyone Tony Stark.
Yeah. And there's a lot of great merits to that, because you can make things going fast. You can build it very cheaply compared to, for example, ITER.
Everyone can have their own energy source.
Excuse me?
Everyone can have their own energy source.
Yes. Yeah. And for example, one of the contracts that we have is with the Defense Innovation Unit. And our goal is to launch a fusion-powered spacecraft in 2027 or 8, if I'm correct. Anyway, so that could be only achievable with a small fusion reactor, not a stadium-sized fusion reactor like what ITER is doing. ITER is an international collaboration between a great number of countries and investing billions of dollars on it. And it was planned to be starting to be built in 2025, but I think that's delayed a little bit too. So
how did Avalanche Energy convince you to come on board, right? Most startups don't have someone like a scientist on board unless they're a science company, right? How did they convince you to come on board? Or did you want to work at a startup during that time in your career?
Actually, I had 5 job offers at a time, and it was finally down to 2 options: Avalanche Energy and a big car manufacturing company, which I was supposed to work on their electric model. And both of them were super interesting. But I had a lot of talks with my mentors about which one should I pick. This one is a corporate. I have a safe job. I have a lot of perks. The other one is super interesting. It could be a lifetime decision that I'm making by joining that company. And it may not work. I have to start looking for jobs. So at the end of the day, I thought I'll probably be able to come back to a big industry again, to corporates, if I want to. But the fusion startup in this stage and with this technology, probably not. It is still a big bet, because I think the failure rate statistically is 90% for startups. So we're privileged that when I started, we were in seed round. We had $5 million to work with, and we built our first reactor in less than a year. And we had our first neutrons generated. And as you know, neutrons are byproducts of hydrogenic fusion reactions. So if you have neutrons, it indicates that you have had successful fusion reactions. So the pace is crazy, about decades of investment of billions of dollars. Ours is less than a year with 10 people. But we have a brilliant team of mechanical engineers, plasma scientists, computer engineers, electrical engineers. All those people are great. So we have a great team, but yeah.
I can't imagine the brain power of the company, right? I mean, I'm sure I have some super smart, if not genius, borderline genius people working the company, right?
Yeah, and I think what we need in fusion industry, all across the different companies, which I think is the case. It's not us; it's a lot of companies, and I think their work is also valuable. And I think the good thing about the culture in fusion industry is that it's not hostile at all. We were happy when NIF announced their Q plasma greater than 1. It was a happy moment for us too, because the world that fusion is not impossible, it's doable, and it's coming. It might not be this year or next year, but it's coming.
Yeah, back to you make the decision where to work at, right? From our point of view, you could go to a corporate job, be safe, but you probably one of hundreds of people don't know you are. But the startup, if y'all pull this shit off, the impact you'd be able to make, right? I mean,
yes,
the world changing, right?
Yeah, it would be a lifetime achievement that I will talk about with my grandkids probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm very happy that we were successful in our seed round. We recently finally announced that we've
You did an
hit
A round too.
A round,
like
$40 million.
Yeah, that's not small change.
Yes, especially in this economic
Yeah.
climate. But yeah, that was great, and I hope we can keep improving our reactor and our systems. And yeah, I'm happy to be part of the team at that moment, because like that was one of my first duties. That like, you know, high voltage feed through is a device that we needed, because fusion happens in high vacuum, and for that we need to that crazy level of voltage from atmospheric pressure, or sorry, 10 to the 9 times less vacuum. And so the highest commercially available feature is rated for 100 kilovolts. So one of my first duties as an employee of Avalanche Energy was to design something new that can reach 200 or 300 kilovolts. And what we're talking about, the usual size of that feed through is like half of this room size. So there are a lot of iterations in design, manufacturing, and I think that 200 kilovolt, I mean, we've designed a 300 kilovolt bushing, but the auxiliary systems are not still ready for making it to 300, but still 200 kilovolt was a big milestone for us to hit Series A, because that was the highest voltage ever a fusion reactor working at.
And this is your first startup you ever worked at with, right?
Yes.
What about the start of life that like kind of surprised you, that you weren't expecting, that kind of threw off guard, so to speak? Like,
so I think the family-like culture that we have in the company is like what struck me the most. I remember at our company, we have a tradition at Wednesday that a group of 2 or 3 or 4 people will cook lunch for the entire company. Like my first thing, I was like amazed by this culture. Oh, because a lot of people think about companies' time as like money. So like if you take half hour of 4 people, it means 2 hours, and 2 hour times something, it means like, I don't know, several thousands of dollars. And this company was like completely against that. Like, we're not 8 to 5 or 9 to 5 people. I mean, just using time as a metric is a very bad way of managing people. It should be very project-based. And I definitely feel that. Like sometimes you may work 6 hours a day and make great accomplishments with a high focus, and sometimes you can work 20 hours a day and don't do shit. So it's not always about the time. And I think our company is doing a great job in the culture term to like make it a pleasing place to work. Like I always like crave for coming back to work on Monday, on Sunday, which a lot of people find it surprising, but it's actually what it is.
Yeah, I'm a big believer everyone should work for a startup at least one time in their life to get the experience.
Yeah.
The company headquarters is actually in a town called Tequila, right?
Yes, in front of Museum of Flight.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what kind of like safety precautions do y'all take? Because I'm sure y'all doing some dangerous stuff in there. Like,
yes. I mean, we have now a directory of regulatory efforts, which I think he's in charge of. Like, he personally is a nuclear pharmacist, and he helps a lot with like preventing us to be damaged or be concerned about neutrons that we might generate during each test. And it's not only part of it, and I mentioned hundreds of kilovolts. So what, for example, we have is that we first of all follow National Electrical Safety Code to make sure that all of our employees and our neighbors are safe from the X-ray and neutrons that we might generate.
Now, do you have to tell like the people in the area what y'all doing? Like I don't, you don't knock on the door, but it's like some kind of general announcement you have to make, like, we're doing this, it's kind of dangerous.
Yes. Not only we have doors around every single test cell, but also we have lights. And the system is designed such that if you even stand right next to the test facility, you're not in hazard too. If it is, then you have to increase the boundary to that level. But like an interesting example of that is our second prototypes. I would call Vault, which is comprised of hundreds of surrounding the whole thing, and you have different layers of lead shield around it that surrounds the entire test article from penetrating outside. And the way we work with is that we have a scissor lift that brings the test sample up, and we do all the modifications we want to make on it. We bring it back down with the scissor lift, close the door, and it's basically safe up to the level that we want to do the test for. But we think that these systems will grow larger future. So one of my questions that I think you might ask is that you're talking about a compact fusion reactor of this size, and you want to put it everywhere. And now you're saying that you need 100 tons of ultraflux cement flux to protect people from against it. But that's true. But we're not shielding it for the final product yet, too. So now we're still in the R&D phase. So once we figure it out and we know what would be like the level of hazard, would be able to shield it from whatever hazard it might generate. And at the same time, I mentioned about neutrons, but there are other fusion fields that are not producing neutrons, like proton boron 11, that is completely a neutronic reaction, and that wouldn't have the hazard. So if our final, it might use that one, and if it does, then we're not going to have the serious hazard causing by neutrons.
So do people like the Nuclear Regulatory Commission or other organizations like that, they provide you like a lot of oversight, or they pretty much leave you all alone?
I think it's very dependent on the local agencies. It's not very federal, I think, so far. So yeah, I'm not that much into that regulatory things. That's probably other folks who are like devoting their time to figuring out those things probably can better answer, but we're definitely complying with everything there is in the state and federal levels.
So man, y'all doing such cool shit. It's like,
yeah.
So I mean, do all like wake up like, man, we're like doing like real life scientific stuff. Like we're making Star Trek come true. We're like want to go to work every day and like this.
Yeah. And at sometimes it does get frustrating too. Like when you're debugging some system and it's not working in the way that you think it should do. But yeah, it's just amazing to be part of this journey. And I exactly feel it as a journey that we're like, there are different chapters that we're going through it with each other. And we have bad times, we have struggles, we have some good times. Like we celebrated making our first neutrons by going to Crystal ski resort, just hanging out and skiing for a couple of days. And that's basically one of our other traditions too, that we do an offsite every season. So
now, is everyone in the Seattle area?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean,
I guess it's kind of hard to do this kind of stuff remotely.
Yeah, I mean, we have a couple other folks who are like simulation guys who are working remotely, but they're not 100% remotely. They come in once in a while, but because we do a lot of experiments, it's not only on computers. We need to be there in person to do the tests.
So can you give us like I hate to use the word dummy, like a dummies 101, what actually is fusion?
Sure. So you know what fission is. It is like you heat a nuclei with a neutron, and it's gonna experience that fission reaction that you're gonna have two lighter particles and a massive amount of energy. So fusion is the complete opposite of that. So we have two very tiny nuclei, like let's think of balls that you collide them each other at very high speeds, and when they merge, they become a heavier ball or heavier nucleus. The heavier nucleus is not the summation of the two lighter nuclei, and the difference in the mass produces energy using the Einstein mc squared formula. So that is what the fusion energy is. So the problem with fusion is that we have been able to produce fusion reactions. The major challenge has been that like the amount of energy we needed to put in to create that fusion reaction has been always higher than what we could get out of work for somebody to deploy it in a commercial level. So for example, what NIF, National Ignition Facility, announced several months ago with Q greater than 1 means that for the plasma side of it alone, they could put like one unit of energy and take more than 1 unit of energy out of fusion reactions. And that was a historical moment because it has never happened before. It's still a lot of work that we need to do on each technology to make this work for a level that it makes sense to deploy.
So the people, I think the first time I bomb was called Manhattan Project, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
So if they were alive today, do you think they would say, man, this is amazing stuff you're doing? Like, I can't believe you're doing this. Or they'd be like, what took you so long?
Yeah, I think they didn't think it would take this long. I think I was reading some historical stories about fusion that a couple of people thought they figured fusion out, but they found it, oh, we did not. So I think part of it, part of the challenge that makes it very hard is also why it makes it peaceful. With fission, you can have that meltdown or thermal runaway or chain nuclear reactions. With fusion, that's exactly what is not happening. So it's entirely our problem how to sustain those reactions to make it worthy of the fusion reactor. So I think the physics is a little bit harder, and the loss mechanisms are more dominating than what we thought at the first they would be. So that's, I think, the major hurdle that we have fusion, but we're still working. I'm quoting from another fusion scientist, which I don't recall his name, but he said, like, he was asked about this same question that, like, can this happen by that year or not? And he said, it's $1 trillion question. And it is, in fact, $1 trillion question, because what we need, if you can figure that out, what then you need is just deuterium, which you can find in seawater molecules, or tritium, which you can breed from lithium. And I mean, tritium is not hard to gain, but all in all, it's way more easier to have a fusion reactor than have a massive area covered by solar panels, or have, I don't know, fossil fuel-based power plants, or wind turbine that kills birds. That I think President Trump complains about.
People don't realize about that wind turbines actually do kill a lot of birds.
Yeah, and I mean, it is still, if it's the only way that we can save the planet with, it's still worthwhile.
Some birds got to die.
Yeah, but if we can find an alternative like fusion, then I think that's definitely good.
Yeah, just like geeking out on a fancy land right now. I'm thinking, like, y'all solve this problem, like, dude, that mean next step is warp drive. We go to wormholes, black holes. Like,
yes,
I mean, like, this the possibilities, like,
yeah.
I mean, time travel and all this stuff that I think opens up. I think.
I don't know about that. I mean, that goes very deep into the science of. I think we. But
if we solve this, what can we not solve, right? I mean.
Yeah, I mean, the nice thing with science is that it always gets harder and harder, and there's no end to it. Like, some people was thinking, like, now we've achieved this, then we're done. Like, what else could we want? Yeah. But now everything comes up. So I'm sure even if we figure fusion out, there are also going to be some other huge problem, interesting problems.
There's always a problem to solve.
Yeah.
Most people don't. 1894, the U.S. Patent Office actually said they should close down permanently because everything had been invented. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah, I've heard about that.
Yeah, like, are you kidding me? Right?
Yeah, I'm sure there's not going to be an end to it.
No. So what are you doing? Like, how much pushback are you getting? Or you think you'll get from big oil industry, right? Because, like, fusion happens, like, what do you need oil for, or all this kind of stuff for? Do you think they're going to try to fight y'all and stop y'all doing what you're doing because they're going to lose all the money? Or
that's a great question. I think we're not focused on that yet. I think if it works, it's going to sell itself no matter what. Like, we haven't even figured it out yet, but DOE it's investing a lot of money, and DOD is investing on us. And I think we're probably the only fusion company that DOD invests on. So I think it's obvious that when you haven't proved that it's going to be an efficient fusion reactor, and still people are interested, still they're investing billions of dollars in it. So I think it wouldn't even be us who are going to fight for making it work, like, come to market, but it's going to be the big investors like Jeff Bezos, Bill Gates, all these people have invested, like Toyota invested in us, all those big companies and big names are behind this. So I don't believe there's going to be any problem with employing them.
So when you go home after work, like, this is my own personal question, like,
Yes.
how do you shut your mind off, right? I can imagine, like, what a place like that might always be turning and moving around. Like, I don't know how I would go to sleep. So,
it was like that for the first 6 months, I would say. But like, I think human beings have a great sense of adaptability. Like, the thing is, I think if you can't take your mind off the subject that you spend most of your time at, you're not going to be efficient in future. You need to let your mind rest a little bit. What I do is probably, there are a lot of like peer review stuff that I do when I'm at home, when I'm working. Also writing papers that definitely I don't have time for them, but writing them at home. Also watching TV. I usually do half an episode to an episode every night. Now I'm doing the new season of Rick and Morty.
hey, yeah, y'all make Rick and Morty come true.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Like, you actually work with Rick and Morty.
The stuff that they do in Rick and Morty, I think it's like 100 times more fusion.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, but no problem with that. But sometimes, depending on the deadline that we need to hit, I might work like last night I was working until 1:30. But that's not usually the case. I don't want to be like that. I want to have the boundaries, and that's going to even help me with work too. Like, when you don't work on something and you come back next day, I'm usually like that. I have new ideas. I look at it in a different angle.
Sometimes it's good to get away from it for a little bit. Yeah. So on your website, y'all actually hiring someone right now. I think it's like a plasma or something.
Yeah, we're always hiring. Like now,
would that person be working for you or working for someone else?
Not for me, but I've actually announced something on my LinkedIn recently that I'm actually needing a high voltage power electronics engineer.
I saw that.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that real fast? What you're looking for?
Yeah. So what we need is to generate hundreds of kilovolts in a very compact device. And we have quite a few ideas, and we're working on a couple of them. And we need some people who have experience with this to come help us, because
so you know experience, you're talking about more than a college intern then, right?
Probably not an intern, but a full-time coming out of college that knows about what we want from him, from high power electronics, RF, DC to DC power conversion. It's definitely going to be a useful thing. And I encourage everybody to reach out to me or apply through LinkedIn, and we're still looking for.
So what type of people, like, suppose people want to apply, right? What kind of characteristics y'all look for in your hires?
Technically or
across the board?
So I think people should have a high level of tolerance for frustration, because
the startup life.
Not only because of startup, because like the nature of the science we do is very tough. Like we're not reinventing the wheel. We're doing things that has never been done. And I think we need people. I was looking for something like this. I wanted to do something that people say is not doable. And I want to make that happen. I don't want to do whatever people has been doing in the past. So I think craving for doing new things, pushing your limits. I love the people who want to learn more.
Curiosity is like a big thing.
Yeah, if you want to keep doing what you're already doing, it's going to be great in some sense, but that's probably not going to work in a startup, especially with this much of science going on. And so, yeah, definitely that one. And having fun. We usually have a lot of fun in our company. I think there was a saying that if somebody comes to our company and don't drink, he's going to have a lot of problems. We have a fusion of FFF, which stands for Friday Fusion Forum. And we had one last night too.
Nice.
And usually we go to a bar, and the company opens a tab, and we always have a drink, and we eat some good food. And last week, actually, our first annual Hot Ones challenge that we are
you talking about
Thirsty Feast?
A copycat
of that.
I love that show. Yeah.
So
I could never do it because I'm not good at eating hot, spicy chicken wings.
A lot of people claim that, actually, but a lot of them actually made it to the end. Some people that were like,
I think that's probably just like pride and ego, right?
I think I personally didn't think I would make it to the land, but I like up to 70 was all fine. I mean, but 8, wow, that was super bad.
That's so nice.
But it was fun. Like we were asking questions, very deep questions that we go in higher levels, and it was a fun experience for sure.
Nice. So from your point of view, how does Avalanche Energy fail?
Avalanche Energy can fail.
Yeah, how?
And there are a lot of ways that we can fail. First of all, we can run out of money, and we don't get the next round of funding. But scientific, I mean, if we hit a scientific major bottleneck, like let's say this mathematics, like so far, I think all the fusion companies think that the science works, but we can't engineer the whole thing. So it's mostly an engineering problem rather than a scientific problem. But let's say if someday we wake up and see that this phenomenon, this loss mechanism, is going to take a lot of power, I can't make up for it, and the math doesn't work. Then, but so far, both physics and simulations, we have a great team of simulation physicists have proved against it, that it still can happen, but you have to overcome the engineering challenges.
Okay. Next, can you talk about y'all's development philosophy? I think it's design, build, test, fix, and repeat. Can you talk about that?
That's just like, it's not our motto, but it's becoming some kind of motto for us. We want to be fast, and that's what allowed us to build our first reactor within a year. So I can tell you a story about one of the pieces that I first designed, which was that 300 kilovolt bushing that's now patented, and I can talk about. So I first come up with a design and in a CAD software, and I go to our mechanical team and I discuss with them like, this is a good idea and we can work that out. And they get back to me like, this is not going to work mechanically, you should do these changes and that. And I do these changes and we review that again. And if it works, we have a machine shop at our company that can build stuff for us. Like we have a very complex dielectric design made of a ceramic called Maycore, and it has a sawtooth design on its surface that you cannot buy yet off the shelf. If you want to order it from another company and outsource it, you're going to wait for at least a couple of months. But when we have that in-house capability, we can build it like in a matter of weeks. And when we build that, we go test it, and it might fail, as we have a hall of shame, which is fusion shame, that we put all this stuff that has been broken, like a lot of them by me and other folks, and like we talk about the lessons that we learn from them.
Yeah, I like that a lot. More people need to do that, right? Put your failures out there so everyone can see, so you can know what could learn from. That's a great idea.
Yeah, and why we're that much emphasizing on design, build, test, fix is that there are a lot of times that your idea works on paper, also works on computer, but when you test it, you see
Real
things
life.
that
Some variable comes up you never thought about, or
exactly. Like, I mean, computer is a great tool, but still it cannot stand for the actual piece to test it. So, and I think a lot of problems for example, ITER project is that it's so massive that if you fail in the design of some component and you've invested that much money and time to it, it's a major hit. But let's say I've made a mistake in designing this thing. It's just another week. It's not a huge deal. And yeah, that's why we're focusing so much on experimenting.
So with what you're doing, most people would think, okay, fusion, energy saving, clean energy. But what's something else that would be like done with this?
Like what application?
Yeah, application. Yeah, like something like people would use every day, but I'm not thinking about.
So it could be the electric vehicles, like they can have a crazy amount of range. Like currently I have an electric vehicle that has like 300-mile range, but it can be like 3,000 miles. And that's going to provide a huge benefit over gas-based vehicles and spacecraft. That's why DoD is working with us, because the solar energy harvesting system doesn't have the power density they're looking for, and fusion can provide that for them. Yeah, so it might make it even easier and cheaper for us to go to space.
So I'm pretty sure I know your answer to this one, but like a lot of people nowadays are negative. They're like, this is the worst time in human history, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, no, this is the best time in human history, right? The stuff we're doing, the stuff we're thinking about doing, like life expectancy is growing up, the scientific advances. Like to me, it's like the best time. Like I would be alive now than like
100%.
I mean, if you think about it, even like not even 100 years ago, most people have electricity. They still have outhouses, right? There's no, I mean, the advance we made in the last 100 years have been
average
incredible.
lifetime, like the number of infant mortality. For all those people that I totally agree with you, I recommend them reading Steven Pinker's book Enlightenment Now, that he talks about, like, he doesn't like talk about like what happened this year or like a couple of years ago. Oh, see what bad thing happened or that war. The wars are true, but the wars have always been here.
Yeah.
And the numbers have declined crazy down.
Yeah.
So what Steven Pinker does in that book is that he compares different ages statistically, like with different happiness matrix, like let's say lifetime. We like to live longer. It's an obvious thing. We like to live healthy, and we can cure disease that we never knew about them.
Yeah.
I now have the access to this amount of knowledge freely, and that alone blows my mind.
Yeah.
That like
YouTube University, right?
Yeah, exactly. And also ChatGPT now that is taking us to another level. Like I don't have to think about very ordinary things. It's just going to be seconds.
I mean, you use your brain for more advanced stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like example, like when I was growing up, everyone remember phone numbers, right? I can't remember phone numbers in my life right now because it's my phone. I use my brain for other things.
Yeah. The same thing with calculator. Sometimes it was like a great like knowledge that you could do very complex math or multiplication in a matter of seconds.
Like, what are you doing, dude? Do your calculator.
No, it doesn't value at all. It's not that like it's now focusing on way more important things. So yeah, I know the threat that people are talking about of AI taking over. I am not that knowledgeable about the future of humanity with respect to AI, but
I mean, no one wants Skynet to come, right?
But yeah, I know that humans are very adaptable, and they have to adapt themselves.
So take fusion out of the equation, right? Besides fusion, what's some kind of new tech that's coming along?
There are a lot of them, like making space travel financially feasible. That's a great deal to me. Like I want to be able to travel to space. Some people think this doesn't make sense.
So you going on the first trip to Mars with Elon Musk? You gonna be in the first ship
with everybody? Not certainly Elon Musk, but I want to go there. I know that it's not going to be anything there, but I just want to experience it.
Yeah, I'm a big believer. Maybe not me, but maybe not my kids. I think my grandkids will have the opportunity to go to space.
I'm hopeful that you yourself can do it.
Yeah, I would definitely go. Maybe not the first ship. maybe number 100. But if the first ship, then walk some kinks out,
Yeah, and science goes pretty fast these days.
Oh man, can you talk about that? Like, what's the like exponential growth? Because like I said this podcast before. I listened to another podcast. I can't remember his name. The scientist, like he used to play Pong video games, and now they have AI in like one generation, right? I mean, the advance of that. Yeah, it's incredible.
So we can never say never. With this pace that we're going at, it's probably going to accelerate too. I think I'm 100% sure that people in 1900s were also saying the same thing. The word is moving pretty fast.
Okay, man, I can't give up my horse for a car. This is ridiculous.
Yeah. So, yeah, I think we're all privileged to be born. Like, if you think about the chance of being born, like, it's just crazy, like 1 in 20 trillion or something.
I mean, being born here versus born in like 1300s and like middle of Europe with a Black Plague going on.
Yes, I mean, to be honest, still there are places in the world that don't have a good life, and they're
no doubt.
Yes, but it's just, I think it's a wild card that we received to be here in this very day and talking with each other.
So you would be considered like an immigrant, right?
Yes.
So can you talk about some of the challenges of being an immigrant when you came over here?
First of all, I think the United States has a great culture of accepting immigrants. I'm sure if I was migrating to Europe or some other places. But I think the major challenge for someone coming from Iran is the emotional challenge for not only me, but for my family, because families are pretty emotional in Iran. Like they invest all their life and time and most of their adulthood on their children. So they usually prefer to have them around, to be able to talk with them, to have them come over for a dinner. And it was definitely a big hit. Like I definitely remember the day that my mother found out that I bought the flight ticket. I mean, she knew that I'm going, but like the moment that she figured that I bought the actual flight ticket, it was,
oh man, I bet that's very emotional for both of y'all.
yes.
I cannot
and the airport, which was both emotional and funny, because both my parents and my older brother were like crying and I was smiling, and they were somehow mad because, oh, we're crying and now you look very happy. But actually I wasn't. Like I cried a lot in the plane.
It's like, I'm leaving forever, suckers. I'm going to America. You stay here.
No, definitely not. But I just didn't want to feel, I knew that they are having a hard time, that I'm going to leave them for, I don't know how many years. But I just didn't want to add to their problem, but just feeling that I'm also in trouble too.
Are they able to come over here to visit you over here?
I think now it's not a bad time. A lot of my friends have their parents coming over, thanks to Biden administration lifting the ban that Trump put on us. But yeah, I think they can. I might book an embassy appointment. And I think one thing that maybe some Americans don't know is that we don't, after Islamic Revolution, we don't have the United States embassy in Iran.
Yeah, I did know that. Yeah.
So we have to either go to Armenia, Dubai, or Turkey.
Yeah.
And that's like, so it could be very hard for people to travel that long and like go there and get rejected.
Oh, yeah.
That could be a big hit.
Oh man, yeah. So coming to America, how did you do as far as a culture shock? Because there had to be a culture shock. How do you deal with the culture change?
I think for me, it was being in a college town. I was in Blacksburg, Virginia, which is a very small town. We called it a village. And the environment of the university dominated the city. And that helped me to like having a similar ambient than what I had in Iran when I was in universities. And people were super nice. And for me, it was very easy because I found some great friends, and I think it definitely helped. Because when you're coming on your own to another country, and if you don't have some friends, it's not very unlikely to go crazy, because if you're always by yourself. But I had the privilege to find some good friends, meet my girlfriend, and yeah, it's been good.
So what are your thoughts on this? So come to Iran, Tolo runs everything pretty much. Come to America, the politics here are just like insanely crazy, right? What are your thoughts on American politics? Like that, like you have Trump, you have Biden, like all these left, right, people hate each other, right? What's your thoughts on that?
I think it's a very complex thing. First of all, I think, like as an outsider, even if when I was out of Iran, like watching debates like Trump versus Clinton or Trump versus Biden were like hilarious.
You're probably like, how are they like superpower of the world? What's going on over here?
I mean, it was fun to watch, to be honest.
I can imagine.
Yeah, like the moment that Biden said, like, "Will you shut up, man?" I don't know why. I know that country is very divided now, but at the same time, I think that has been what made America great in the first place, because like there are two totally different schools of thought working against each other. Neither of them get the whole thing, but I think the final combination of those two is not all in all a bad thing. But I know that these days are not. I know that a lot of my American coworkers are suffering by seeing what's happening in the political scene with Trump not accepting the election results and like questioning the democracy in this country, which I personally, I have no vote, but I find it is a little bit dangerous for the democracy of this country.
Yeah, I've said before, like as a country, we have to do better than Biden, Trump 2024. Like, please, someone else. Please, first of all, can you be 60 or below to run for president, right? I mean, you just have to do better, right? But right now, it looks like it's gonna be Biden, Trump again. Like, man, like, but I read somewhere that countries get the leadership they deserve. So maybe we deserve Biden and Trump. Who knows?
Yeah. So, yeah, I think that's the feeling that you mentioned is the feeling that I think the majority of Americans wanted. Like, even Trump, Republicans may prefer someone over Trump, also Democrats someone over Biden. They don't want to see that again. So what is your personal thought on that? Like,
it's like, I don't know. So one thing I think about American politics, like suppose I run for like any it's just not president by any election, right? Suppose I run for city council. Before you know it, Jason skipped school in the 7th grade, or Jason, they pull up all these skeleton bones out, right? So if you're a good person, why do you put yourself through that, right? And especially that career politician that run over and over again, right? The same person, right? Like, I think Senator Dianne Feinstein from California, like 89 years old. She's in a wheelchair, can't even talk anymore, like, I don't know. We have to do better, but I don't know. It's
so I mean, I was watching Bill Maher.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of his. Yeah, I like him a lot.
Yeah, and like he was mentioning that, like, do we care about like how energetic our president is? Isn't being president the major duty? It might be like you have to make quite a few good decisions, and maybe the wisdom helps.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. In some sense, I admire Biden. Like, with all the things that he's gone through in his life, with like his son, his wife, his own, I think he had some bad disease too. And after all this, being motivated to run for president, it was a big thing. And staying there at 82.
Yeah.
I don't know nothing about politics, but I want to be that motivated when I'm 82, if I get to that point.
Yeah, that's true. It's who knows what's going to come about.
So if you were Biden, you wouldn't run the next time?
I mean, I'm a big believer that, like, people will say what they're going to do, but you never know what you do when you're in position. So I would hope I will not run, but, ego, pride, like, and plus he's probably like, if they're going to run against Trump, I can't let Trump be president again, right? So I have to run, right? So maybe that's it, right? Or maybe someone's like, quote unquote, influencer, right? Hey, President Biden, you be the oldest president. Like, who knows what's going through his mind, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I would hope I wouldn't run at that age, like, enjoy life. But on the public, it seems like he's like decrepit, like, mental decline, but he might feel like he's the smart person in the world, like, and he might have a bunch of yes people around, like, hey, you're doing a great job, I mean, you never know what's going on behind the scenes.
Yes, it's hard to know. But
he might be like, I've been in Washington for 49,000 years. I deserve to be president, right?
Yeah. I mean, definitely he has a lot of experience.
Oh, yeah.
Like Trump, I think, mocked him a little bit a couple of days ago that, like, he has a lot of experience, but he doesn't remember it. So, yeah, I hope the best things happen for the American people.
Yeah. So next, going back to Avalanche Energy. So one of y'all's company values is be weird. Talk about being weird.
This is one of our comedy comments that we make all day. Like, when somebody is interviewing, we ask our co-workers, like, did you ask him if he's weird enough or not? So I think the story behind it is to embrace the uncertainty behind the thing that we're following. I mean, that's exactly what made me super interested in the technology, because we don't know the end. We don't know what's gonna be the last scene of this movie. And that makes it very interesting. So be weird, I think, is partly to embrace that uncertainty, be able to do weird things to achieve that goal.
Versus all the hundreds of thousands of colleges here.
I mentioned that I had talks with quite a few professors in the US, and I was mostly inclined to do high voltage than power systems or power electronics, but actually like to be high voltage in power electronics. So the professor was like in the best power electronics center, arguably best power electronics center in the world and the US. And I felt like I should do it. This is the best center, and I want to do high voltage. This is the best company.
Is there any other science that interests you?
I mean, biology. I read Richard Dawkins' book, Charles Darwin book. I mean, not one book of Richard Dawkins, quite a few of them. But yeah, definitely biology, physics. I mean, knowledge in general. Like, what is a little bit depressing to me is that how life is short compared to what I can learn. And but anyway, I have to deal with it.
And so how long have you been with Avalanche Energy?
So right after, like 3 weeks before I defended my PhD. So since January 2022, which is about a year and a half.
Okay.
Yeah.
So far since you've been there, what's something like you really like about, or really love about working there?
what I like most about it? The freedom that they give, that you can follow what you like. So sometimes in companies or labs, they assign you to a project. Doesn't matter you like it or not, but they try their best to let you do the thing that you like to do. Like I was working on a project on a side thing, which I believe it would benefit the company greatly. And I just disclosed the idea someday, and they were embracing that idea. So they're not looking for yes man people. And that's, I think, a great advantage to have. Like in the first day, they gave us our own credit cards. So we have credit to buy things that we think.
Did you go to Vegas that weekend?
So they give us the freedom to buy stuff if we think they're valuable. That trust that they put in you, it's, I think, a big thing to me personally.
Next question. If they made you CEO for the day, what would you change?
Oh, that's a question I've never thought about. What would I change? Probably I would pay myself higher salary. No, but seriously, I think Robin is doing a great job. Our CEO is Blue Origin veteran. He's born in Canada, did his PhD in Germany, worked in ANSYS, one of the great multiphysics simulation companies, and then came to the US and worked at Boeing for, I think, 7 or 8 years, and went to Blue Origin and worked for 10 years, and now working on a technology that wasn't like his main expertise, but he knows a lot about it. And I think he's doing a great job. I think if you ask the employees of that company, I think probably everybody will verify my statement.
Who are your mentors?
So I have 2 mentors. One is Jim Horkovich, which is I think he's retired at Air Force. He was professor, I think, at Air Force University. And also another one, Kamyar Karimi, who worked at Boeing for 32 years and retired a couple of years ago. Yeah, I get a lot of great advice from those 2 people.
So next part of the question, to me, the more important part, who are you mentoring?
Who am I mentoring? Quite a few people. One of them is my cousin, who is college. I mean, studying during COVID, not being able to go to school and all those problems, and she's in Iran, was a big problem. And in Iran, we have a national entrance exam for university. Basically, everybody can get to university. So we have both public and private. And in public, which is the better university, but they are free and they're harder to get in. So usually there are hundreds of thousands of participants fighting with each other over a 4-hour exam that has physics questions, mathematics, chemistry, literature, English, all those things. And it's a very tough exam. Like whatever you've learned in 12 years of school, you have to answer in that exam. And
so it could be anything, subject, anything from 12 years.
Yes.
That's craziness.
Yeah, but it's mostly like, if you're doing a mathematics field, it's mostly physics, chemistry, and math. And they're pretty hard questions. So it's like, it's a gold ticket for you if you get into, for example, Sharif University that I did. Like, there was an interview by Stanford president, and I think it was 10 years ago, that he said the best electrical engineer graduates are coming from Sharif University. And they usually get at least a few of them every year. Because the computer science has changed the game a little bit, but traditionally, the 100 best students in math in Iran would go to electrical engineering department, like the most brilliant minds, like Olympiad, math, like the highest talents would go into electrical engineering, and like Stanford, MIT. I myself went to the best spot I could find in the US. So there are a lot of pressure on students to go into that university or other credible universities. And I'm mentoring a few of my friends and family members to enable them to overcome the stress and pressure you're undergoing. So a few of my friends who are applying for PhD positions. I'm mentoring them.
What age were you when you started becoming interested in science?
I loved math from the beginning. Like, I think probably I've only lost. I didn't score the full mark in math probably a couple of times in my life, because I loved math so much that I was always interested in that. So I can't remember the start date. I mean, probably I would say middle school, like 10 or 11. But I was usually mostly interested in pure math. I was not into space stuff that much.
So let's say there's somebody out there 10 years old and they're interested in science. What advice do you have for them? Like to follow their passion, like learn to be a scientist, like at that young age, what do you tell them?
I think follow their curiosity is the big thing. Like, and don't expect that things will go easy. If you want to grade, that's what I still tell myself. But if you want to achieve great things, you have to be patient. You have to allow yourself to deal with problems over and over again, because valuable things doesn't come easy. So it's, I think, patience and perseverance, the most important factors in my mind for that.
From your point of view, what makes someone a great scientist?
I mean, it's a very general question. It's hard to answer, but the way that they judge things, how they judge their findings, it can happen quiet in your life if you're a scientist, that you can convince yourself that something is an answer to a problem, which is not the case. So being critical of what your own findings, I think, makes great science. Only ingredient. You have to be smart, you have to be patient, and you have to have resources. Like for fusion, let's say we didn't have the money to do the experiments, we could have achieved nothing. So it's not, some people say like chance plays no role in life. I was always one of them before too, but there is still like, the chance still plays a few percentage of role in achieving great things. So even very famous scientists, I think, have had their own fair share of chance to achieving great things.
Can someone be too smart? What I mean, like, can you be so smart, like you're not able to like communicate stuff at a layman's level?
That doesn't make sense to me. Like solving the problem of describing a problem, it's usually easier than solving the problem itself. I think that's just a public image of scientists, and they are nerd, and like they can't communicate. It's enough.
Yeah.
But not being able to communicate, I don't believe that much.
Okay. So what are some of your career goals? Like, you want to like get a Nobel Prize for nuclear fission in the future? Like, what's your like, I mean, everyone has career goals, something they want to do in the future. Like, what do you want to do?
So first of all, I'm not a physicist per se, but I always believe that if somebody be focused so much on destination, he wouldn't make it there. Einstein was planning for Nobel Prize, or Marie Curie, when she was doing the test on radioactive materials, was like actually thinking, oh, I should do this, I can win Nobel Prize. I think the prizes and the money and your salary and everything you get should come as a side product of what you're doing. It shouldn't be the main focus. And I'm not saying it's just saying a nice thing. I think it's actually what it is. Because if you're too much focused on your final destination and what you can get, you're losing the mainstream. You're losing the base, the more important thing that needs your focus. It means you're not focused enough. And I think that's a bad habit to have. I mean, it's good to dream. I always dream about what I can achieve. Like, let's say fusion happens, or let's say I start a company that does that. But I can't be spending too much on things that are not tangible and be hopeful that they will happen.
So is there any scientists, like either dead or alive, that you want to like hang out with for 30 minutes, an hour, just like, I hate to use the term pick their brain, but like, pick their brain, so to speak?
I think it has to be either, I think, Stephen Hawking or Einstein. But I don't know if 30 minutes is going to be enough.
Yeah, that would be enough. Yeah. So what's your point of view on this, right? Like, do you think the human race has gotten smarter through the years, or we're like the same intelligence level? Like, if you took someone like the year 800, could you put him a day and he like pick everything up, be as smart as we are? Or do you think we're just like we've advanced technology, but like not really as being smart?
The word smart is not that clear to me. Like maybe sometimes we misinterpret smart versus problem solver versus hardworking, because I always tell myself that like if someone is smart, let's say hypothetically I'm smart, but if I don't put enough effort into using that smartness into doing things, it wouldn't do anything. So I think being smart, like having a good level of IQ, is a requirement, but it's not everything. So it's just one of the elements that can help people pick up things pretty quickly. But if you don't have the knowledge, let's say you're smart, but you don't have the background, you can't make that judgment. You can't like let's say I'm sure there have been people smarter than Einstein, but they haven't been able to find that they haven't made the discovery he had made, partly because they were not physicists. So you can't expect somebody who doesn't have the background but smart enough to make it to the last place. So for sure you should have at least the minimum smartness need to do the job, but at the same time you should be curious by threat and be patient.
How do we fix that, right? 'Cause like, how do you like recognize kind of like suppose like there's some young girl like 13 years old, we're saying like a small town in Arkansas, she's a high IQ, she's like scientific inclined, but like there's nothing scientific around her, like she lives on a farm, right? Like how do we identify these people, right? I mean tests don't really do a good job at that, I'm like,
yeah, that's a sad thing to think about, and it's hard to overcome that. And
like in Arkansas, you're a young lady like 14 years old, you want to be science, they're like, go milk the cow or something, right? I mean, there's no time for science, right? Like,
yeah, and sometimes it's not the only problem. The problem is that the ideology that their brain has been washed with over and over, like what is the correct life?
Mhm.
What should be the value?
Mhm.
It's so changed. Like even if you have the IQ, you're so deep into the mud of like those beliefs that you can't take yourself out, even if you have the opportunity. I mean, I've spoken to quite a few people who I think could do a great job, but they were saying, look, I'm fine with where I am. I don't want to go anywhere. I think I'm made for this.
Yeah.
So just convincing yourself that this is all you can do, it's a very sad thing to me. I think people should always be hungry for pushing the boundaries. And like I have a favorite soccer team, AS Roma, and their motto is hungry for glory. I think people should be always hungry for glory. Glory doesn't mean like money or cups, but just working in the path that you always like to work at.
So how do you make sure you keep up to speed on all the like scientific stuff you need to know about?
That's a good question. It's becoming harder and harder for me because like when you have very small projects going on, you have to make management decisions, you have to hire people, and at the same time you have a life that your personal life that you should spend time on it. Sometimes it's hard to manage, but I think I'm recognizing the value of being organized more and more these days. Like I wasn't using any apps for like organizing things, writing down my tasks, or like Eisenhower Tower, saying what are my main priorities, what should I achieve today, and most importantly, what I should not do today, because there are other important things actually which it's better not to do when you have a higher priority. So some people, and I think one of those people at some point, that couldn't make the distinction between a high priority item and a higher priority item. And you should always sacrifice something. We have limited amount of time. And I think that's important.
So let's take yourself like 10 years ago, right? Your 10-year-old self, do you think you'd be like, okay, like in 2023, I'm exactly where I should be at. I'm behind schedule, I'm ahead of schedule.
So what I think now, when I think I'm doing better than what I expected.
That's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's
like
very good.
I didn't expect like I would finish my PhD in 3.5 years. Like writing a scientific article was such a big deal to me. Like, oh, I should be like learning all these things, and my name is going to be on a paper. And if I make a mistake, my name is going to be mocked forever and ever till the end of time, which I could happen. I think it happened today too if I said anything stupid. But like I've done, and that's the story of life. I think the hard work that sometimes their dreams become like very normal thing, and that now they have to define new dreams to achieve. That I think that's the beauty of life.
Yes. Is there anything I should have asked you that I didn't, or anything else you want to talk about?
There are a lot of things that we can talk about, think about, and talk. And
Yeah, but you have the time limit at 2 hours though, right?
yeah.
Talk to you like 2 hours just on Iran stuff, right?
Yes, exactly. Actually, I wanted to make that point that I think not only Iran, but Ukrainian people, all the wars, also in Middle East.
Yeah.
I think there are a lot of.
That's like most Americans, like we're focused on Ukraine, but like, there's been a war in Sudan forever. There's stuff going on. I mean,
Afghanistan, like it breaks my heart so much about Afghanistan and their women or girls not being able to go to school, not being able to do anything. Like, unfortunately, it's sad but true that like the lives of different people matter differently.
Yeah.
I wish it wasn't the case. I think we're on the right track now that, I mean, we're talking about these things, and you bring that point up, which I appreciate it really. It's a very important point.
There's some stuff going on in the world, and like on the American news, it's to me just horrible, right? Like they bring stuff up like what, like.
Yeah, at the same time, like this is America, like people live in this country, so it makes sense that the news media.
I mean, but everybody's talking like in entertainment, people like so-and-so entertainer got married, right? It take 10 minutes of news, like, are you kidding me, right? Like, go to TMZ for this, right? Like, and there's like stuff going on in like own community, right? Like the homelessness in Seattle, emergency in Seattle, things going everywhere, like, there's so much news, good and bad, right? And they focus on like entertainment, like 10 minutes. So-and-so got married or so-and-so got divorced. Like I'm sure people care, I guess, but like.
I have the exact same feeling as you're describing.
Yeah, but
it has its audience, so
it does. Yeah, I mean, it's all about making a profit.
Exactly.
Yeah, I usually watch. I like watching Al Jazeera. I think they're pretty good.
Oh,
I like Al Jazeera.
I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, I like them. And then there's a thing called Axios News. They're pretty good too.
I think I've watched them quite a few times. Yes, they're good. Now that reminds me of another like battlefield. For example, Yemen.
Oh yeah,
it's a battlefield between Saudi Arabia and Iran.
Yeah.
And it's
like proxy war, what do you want to call it?
Yeah. And what have like the people done to them? Like their destiny of a huge amount
it's
of
like they're being manipulated,
Yeah.
So didn't Saudi Arabia and Iran like sign a kind of an agreement recently, or they're trying to get close to it?
And I think that's not good news to the US because China was mediating between them and taking a dangerous role.
And of course, it's probably not good news for Israel because now Israel, oh man, like they're going to team up on us or something,
Yeah, I mean, like one of the big claims of the Islamic Revolution was that we want to be independent. Like we're independent on the US or the West or this and that. But now we're not independent. We're now dependent on Russia and China. And just that's even worse. I mean, I personally prefer you. They treat their allies better. Russian people are not doing well either.
No.
Like I'm sad about them too. Like people from Russia being booed in the sports field just because being Russian. Like Putin does a lot of stupid things, but that doesn't mean that.
I had a lady on here like maybe 2 or 3 podcasts ago named Vlada. She moved her from Russia and her husband, and she told me some of the stuff going on in Russia. Like man, it's like heartbreaking.
Yes. Yeah, I like tennis and I watch tennis sometimes. And there's this guy, Medvedev, who plays
I remember that. I remember that happening.
And he gets booed everywhere. And I think like the place that he's coming from is major reason.
Yeah. He should have a t-shirt. I don't support, like I'm against the war, like something, right?
Yeah. I think Rublev, but I think governments play a dangerous game with each other, and people pay the price.
Yeah, unfortunately, most government sucks, and the people have to pay the price. You know, most people get along, right? I mean, regardless where they come from, you know. Exactly.
Yeah. I mean, as an Iranian, with all these tensions between the U.S. and Americans, with U.S. and Iran, I've been treated perfectly. I think the U.S. is probably the only country in the world that embraces immigrants with so much dignity and care. And I think it's a two-way street. We try to give whatever we can to help build this country. And I think it's like the way that U.S. has been formed, like, and how
we're an immigrant country.
Yes, and that's
unfortunately some Americans forget that.
Yeah, and I'm just grateful for the opportunity that secular countries like this can provide, and I hope someday I can see that government, similar government in Iran.
Well, you're going to give us all free energy pretty soon, so that'd be payment enough.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what advice do you have for immigrants coming here? What would you tell them they need to do or don't do?
I mean, it can be easy. It's sometimes it's very hard for people. Like sometimes the chaos that is there, like you should be, I think, hardworking to make it work here. You can't just come here for fun. And not easy. Like my father sarcastically used to call me like a door, that like they have a lot of emotion, but I don't have any. So like some guy like me is okay with the being distant from family, but I know quite a few friends of mine who are not okay with that, and they will come back. And Iran is a great country to work in if the government allows you to have a free economy, because there are a lot of resources and money flowing in that country. So I think it doesn't have to be immigration for a lot of students. But for me, it wasn't just the financial aspect of it. I think I could be fine in Iran, but just not being able to be myself, like the beliefs, I couldn't disclose what I believe in now. I mean, it's partly Islam too. Like if you leave your ideology or religion, I think you should be executed by Islam. Anyway, yeah, all sorts of crazy things.
So this is gonna be a very ignorant question, but like in Iran, can y'all like go from city to city freely? Can you go like travel to different countries, or you have to stay where you're at?
No, they can. I mean, the country itself is free, and I mean, before Islamic Revolution, we didn't need visa for most of the countries because of the good relation we had with everybody. But after that, because of all these tensions, we need to get visa for everywhere. But other than that, yeah, I mean, except the economy, which is downgrading more and more as a result of, some people call it all sanctions, but I don't think it's all sanctions. It's just mismanagement of the government.
Some of it is government decisions.
Yeah, we still have a lot of money, but like,
I mean, y'all all one of the biggest oil producing countries in the world, right?
Yeah, oil and gas. Like I think gas were number 2 or oil number 3 or 4, and it's hard to see like this rich country having so much problems. And I think it's the theocracy that is making us pay.
Yeah, one thing I don't know when people realize the leader used to be called the Shah, right?
Yeah,
the Shah Iran. I remember seeing pictures like in the 70s, like basically Iranians dressed like America. You see like Iranian women like short dresses, you know, like they were like Americanized, and then like a child community came with like 180-degree change.
Yes, yeah, and I think like one example of adverse effect of that is that we can't attract another tourists we can claim. Like when tourists come to Iran, they're like amazed by the scenes they see. And I think I mean, even if we didn't have the oil and gas, the tourism could be our main economic advantage. But yeah, the stupid policies, and I mean, if you are Muslim, and I respect, like my parents are Muslim, but they're fine by keeping that to themselves. Why should a government force that into other people? And I mean, it in some sense, it's a good thing to happen, because it accelerated the real perception of people from religion. And I think that this could take like hundreds of years, like what happened with Roman age and what popes were doing to people and the hard time that they had. And I think they had a horrible time too. And some people are expecting the same thing in Iran. But I think with this government, it got accelerated because it revealed to people how dangerous theocratic regimes can be. And this is, I don't think, totally bad thing.
Yeah, my thing is like, with religion, like how you know whose God's true, right? Like, is it Christianity, Buddha? Like, if there's like one true God, how could just come down and say, I'm God, do what I say, right?
Yeah.
How's this like, I could make stuff like, I mean, who is it like, is the Roman God Neptune? He's the right one,
Yeah.
like the Greek God, like, there's all these gods, right?
And why the one that I was born with is the right one?
Yeah.
I mean, definitely, if I was born in Israel, I was being Jewish. If I was born in Brazil, I probably would be Christian.
Be so lucky, right? It's talk about chance, like, so where you're born at determines you're going to heaven or hell, whatever the case it be,
Yeah. And Richard Dawkins has a very funny saying that, like, I'm atheist to let's say we have 10,000 religions. We are 9,999 religions. I'm atheist to.
Yeah.
Some of us go one anyway.
Yeah.
Although the religion says otherwise, but like, it's just a personal thing.
Yeah.
Even if you have that faith, it's between you and your God.
Yeah. My thing is believe you want to believe, but don't push it on someone else, right?
Exactly.
Like, I'm a question. Maybe you want to like talk to them about, and say, hey, I'm this, I'm that, so I'm like this religion.
Mm-hmm.
But those people out there, like, I'm, ex-religion, do what I do my religion or die and burn in hell, right? Like,
yes.
First of all, that's not your place, right? That's God's place to do that,
Yeah, but I think in all these things, people are the victims.
Yeah.
Even those like the suicide bombers. First of all, I mean, they kill a lot of people, but they kill themselves too. Like, and that's a sad thing. And they die with the belief that they're going to heaven. I mean,
hey, do you ever watch Family Guy?
Not really.
So had one episode where like there was this terrorist bomber, right? Where they kill himself, right? I'm gonna kill myself and get 40 virgins. It was 40 boy virgins, like 40 young teenage boys.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a story being told to a child to convince, like, you can talk about that for hours and hours.
Definitely. So one more time, is there anything that I didn't ask you that you want to talk about?
No, that was all. It was a really fun experience. Thank you for having me here.
Yes. That's my number one goal for people who say they had a fun time.
Yes, it was definitely fun, and I hope we can have another time talking more in depth about.
I did want to talk to you again. So, how can people reach out to you? Can you share your social media?
Absolutely. I have my website, moeinborghei.com. There's my LinkedIn, which I think you can share that with people. And there's my email, me@moeinborghei.com. They can reach out to also Avalanche Energy website. And if you're interested in what we do, even if we don't have an opening position in our company, feel free to reach out. We have no boundaries. If we find some talented people that are excited and they can work with us, we're always open to hiring more people. So
a very good question. Can someone like go to your company like, hey, I want to tour what y'all doing?
Yeah, we're doing a lot of tours.
Okay.
But we have to know before.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah.
That's all. But yeah, definitely. We had a tour of a few folks from IEEE Seattle section, which Mike was one of them too. And we're always happy to have people looking at our facility, and I'm sure you're going to be safe.
Yes. Hey, thanks for your time today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
And to our listeners, thank you for your time as well. Remember to be great every day.